My son vanished from my life for 6 years, no calls, no texts, nothing. Then one Friday afternoon, he walked into my office without knocking. Accompanying him was a woman he called his wife. The two of them pushed a contract toward me and said, "Sign over 40% of the company shares to me so I can pay off my debts." I was so shocked I could barely breathe, but I stayed calm and made one phone call to find evidence to fight back against them. And that phone call changed my entire life. Thanks for being here. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. Take care of your health too. Quick note, this is fictional crafted to explore family betrayal and redemption. Any resemblance to real people is coincidental, but the lessons matter. Now back to that Friday afternoon. I was 3 pages deep into the Riverside municipal bid when my office door swung open without a knock. $5.2 million. That's what the contract was worth. The kind of money that could keep Mitchell Construction running smooth for the next 18 months, pay 50 employees through 2 Texas summers, and maybe, if we played it right, fund the expansion I'd been planning since before my wife passed. The specs were dense, reinforced, concrete, load-bearing calculations, timelines that didn't forgive mistakes. I had my red pen in hand, marking notes in the margin about rebar spacing, when I heard the door latch click and 2 sets of footsteps cross the threshold. I didn't look up right away. Maria, my office manager, had worked for me for 12 years. She knocked. Always. 3 sharp raps, then she'd wait for my "come in" before turning the handle. Whoever had just walked into my office either didn't know that rule or didn't care. I kept my eyes on the bid. Let them wait. My finger traced the line item for structural steel, but I wasn't reading anymore. I was listening. 2 people. One with a heavier step boots, maybe work boots. The other lighter, deliberate, heels on hardwood. "We need to talk." A man's voice. Low, strained. Familiar in a way that made my gut clench before my brain caught up. "Now." I set the pen down slowly, lifted my head, and there he was. Robert, my son, 35 years old, standing in my office for the first time in 6 years. He looked thinner than I remembered, the kind of thin that comes from stress, not the gym. His face was harder, the boyish softness I used to see gone, replaced by sharp angles and shadows under his eyes. He wore a blue button-down shirt that looked like it had been ironed once, maybe a week ago, and jeans that hung loose on his hips. His hair needed a cut. His hands were shoved deep in his pockets, shoulders hunched forward like he was bracing for a hit. But it was his eyes that got me. They were the same brown as his mother's, the same eyes that used to light up when I'd take him to a job site as a kid, let him hold the tape measure, let him think he was helping. Now they looked hollow, tired, maybe ashamed. I couldn't tell. Standing beside him was a woman I'd never seen before, polished in a way that felt intentional. She had dark hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail, sharp cheekbones, and a tailored navy blazer over a white blouse that probably cost more than my work boots. Her posture was perfect, chin up, shoulders back, and when our eyes met, hers didn't waver. No nervousness, no apology for barging in, just a cold, steady assessment, like she was sizing up a job site before putting in a lowball bid. "Robert." I kept my voice even, flat. I wasn't going to give him anything more than that. Not yet. He opened his mouth, but she spoke first. "Mr. Mitchell." Her voice was smooth, professional, the kind of tone you'd use in a boardroom, not a construction office that smelled like coffee and lumber. "I'm Vanessa, Robert's wife." Wife. The word hit me sideways. I hadn't known, hadn't been invited to a wedding, hadn't gotten a phone call, a text, nothing. 6 years of silence, and now this. I leaned back in my chair, folded my arms across my chest. "What do you want?" Vanessa stepped forward, not Robert her, and rested her fingertips on the edge of my desk like she owned the place. Robert owes $350,000. The debt is escalating. Creditors are threatening legal action. We're here because we need your help. I looked past her to Robert. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was staring at the floor, jaw, clenched hands, still buried in his pockets. Help, I repeated. The word tasted bitter. You haven't spoken to me in 6 years. Now you walk in here and ask for help. We're not asking, Vanessa said, and her tone shifted. Still calm, but colder now. Sharper. We're offering you a solution. You sign over 40% equity in Mitchell Construction to Robert. Tonight. In exchange, we'll manage the debt repayment ourselves. You don't have to give us cash, just the stake. I felt my jaw tighten. My hands resting on the arms of my chair curled into fists. 40%. She wanted 40% of the company I'd built from nothing. The company my wife and I had started in 1985 with a single truck and a dream. The company I'd bled for, missed dinners for, worked 18-hour days for. Get out, I said quietly. Vanessa blinked. Excuse me. I said get out. Both of you. Robert's head snapped up. Dad, please. Don't. I stood, planting both hands on the desk. I wasn't a tall man, 5'10" maybe, but I'd spent 40 years in construction, and my frame still carried the weight of it. You don't get to call me that. Not after 6 years. Not like this. Vanessa's expression didn't change. No surprise. No anger. Just that same cold calculation. Mr. Mitchell, if you don't help Robert, the consequences will be severe. For him. For your family. For your reputation. Is that a threat? It's a reality. I stared at her. Then at Robert. He still wouldn't look at me. His hands were trembling in his pockets. I could see the fabric shaking. I took a slow breath. Let it out. When I spoke again, my voice was quieter, but harder. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my office. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, you come back. We'll talk. Talk, not negotiate. You don't walk into my place of business and make demands. You want my time, you ask for it. Like adults. Vanessa opened her mouth, but I cut her off. That's the offer. Take it or leave. Silence. 5 seconds that felt like 5 minutes. Vanessa's eyes stayed locked on mine, searching for weakness. I didn't give her any. Finally, she straightened, smoothed her blazer. Fine. Monday, 9 a.m. She turned on her heel and walked toward the door. Robert hesitated, looked at me one last time. I saw something in his face, desperation maybe, or regret. I couldn't tell. Then he followed her out. The door clicked shut. I stood there alone in my office, listening to the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of a truck backing up outside. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the desk, felt the cool wood under my palms, and forced myself to breathe. The phone on my desk buzzed. The screen lit up Martin Reynolds. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I picked up. Talk to me. Martin's voice came through clear and steady, the same tone he'd used for 30 years, whenever a project went sideways. No panic. Just focus. I leaned back in my chair, rubbed my free hand across my face. Robert just left. Silence on the other end. Not the empty kind, the kind where someone's processing information they didn't expect. Martin had been my business partner since 1990, my friend even longer. He'd been at my wedding. He'd been at Sarah's funeral. He knew what 6 years of silence meant. You're Robert, he finally said. Your son Robert. Yeah. What did he want? I exhaled slow. $350,000. Well, not cash. Equity. 40% of Mitchell Construction. His wife, Vanessa, I just met her, says he owes that much in debt, and they need me to sign over a stake in the company to cover it. Another pause. I heard Martin shift in his chair, the creak of old leather. Did you know he was married? No. And he wants 40%, Brandon, that's... I know what it is. Humming. I cut him off, not angry, just tired. I told them no. Set a meeting for Monday morning. They left. What's her last name? The question caught me off guard. Who's? The wife, Vanessa. What's her last name? I realized I didn't know. She'd introduced herself as Vanessa Roberts' wife. Nothing more. I'd been too focused on my son standing in my office after 6 years to ask. I don't know, I admitted. How long have they been married? I don't know that either, Martin. I heard him typing in the background. Fast two-finger hunt and peck, the way he'd been doing it since before computers were standard in construction offices. I'm going to make some calls this weekend. Run a background check. Something about this doesn't sit right. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Brandon, listen to me. You don't walk into someone's office after 6 years and demand 40% of a $12 million a year company without a plan. This isn't desperation. This is calculated. He was right. I'd felt it too, standing there watching Vanessa's cold eyes, the way she'd stepped forward while Robert hung back, the way she'd phrased it, not a request, a solution. But part of me didn't want to admit it. Part of me wanted to believe my son had come back, because he needed his father, not because someone had told him to. Call me tomorrow, Martin said. I'll have something by then. Okay. Brandon. Yeah. You did the right thing, setting boundaries, making them wait. Don't second-guess yourself. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Thanks, Martin. The line went quiet. I set the phone down and sat there in the stillness of my office, staring at the Riverside bid still spread across my desk. The numbers didn't make sense anymore. The words blurred together. I thought about the last time I'd seen Robert. 6 years ago. March 2014. He'd been 29 years old, sitting across from me at a diner on the east side of Houston, hands shaking so bad he couldn't hold his coffee cup steady. He'd come to me 3 days earlier, confessed he'd gotten in deep with the wrong people. Gambling debts, poker games that started friendly and turned predatory, private loans with interest rates that compounded weekly. Men who didn't take, "I'll pay you next month," as an answer. $350,000. Same number Vanessa had said today. Coincidence or history repeating, back then I'd made a choice. I sold the house Sarah and I had bought in 1987, the house where we'd raised Robert, where his height marks were still penciled on the kitchen doorframe, where his mother had taken her last breath 2 years earlier. I got $240,000 for it. Moved into a smaller place closer to the office. I drained my savings account. Every dollar I'd tucked away for retirement, for emergencies, for the future, I thought I'd have with Sarah before cancer took her. $180,000. Gone. And when that wasn't enough, I went to the bank and took out a $250,000 mortgage against Mitchell Construction. Put my company, my life's work on the line. $620,000 total. I gave it to Robert in a cashier's check. Watched him sign paperwork promising he'd pay back the loan sharks. Watched him swear he'd get help, go to meetings, stay away from the tables. Then I'd told him the hardest thing I'd ever said. You're cut off. Until you get real help, therapy meetings, something, we're done. I can't watch you destroy yourself, son. I won't. He'd looked at me with those brown eyes, his mother's eyes, and I'd seen the hurt there. The anger, the shame. He'd taken the check and walked out of that diner, and I hadn't heard from him since. Not on his 30th birthday. Not on mine. Not on the anniversary of Sarah's passing. Not on Christmas, Thanksgiving, or any random Tuesday in between. 6 years of silence. And now he was back, with a wife I'd never met, asking for 40% of everything I had left. I locked up the office at 6:30. The parking lot was empty except for my truck, a 2015 F250 white, with the Mitchell Construction logo on the door. I drove home on autopilot, barely noticing the traffic on the Gulf Freeway, the strip malls and fast food joints blurring past. My house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, small, single-story, built in the 70s. I'd stopped leaving lights on years ago. No point when it was just me. Inside, I poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a glass. Maker's Mark. Sarah used to joke that I was too cheap to buy the expensive stuff and too stubborn to drink the rail liquor. I sat down at the kitchen table, same table we'd bought at a garage sale in 1986, and set the glass in front of me. I didn't drink it. I just sat there staring at my phone on the table. Screen dark. No missed calls. No messages. It never rang anymore. Outside, I heard a dog barking, a car door slamming, the hum of the neighbor's air conditioner kicking on. Inside, it was just me, and the silence and a glass of whiskey I couldn't bring myself to touch. Saturday morning, 9 o'clock sharp. My phone rang. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at cold coffee I hadn't touched. Martin's name on the screen. Yeah. Get to the office. Now. His voice was tight. Urgent. What is it? Not over the phone, just come. 20 minutes later, I was walking into Mitchell Construction. Martin's Tahoe sat crooked across 2 parking spaces. Inside his desk was buried under printed documents. Sticky notes, his laptop open to court records. Reading glasses perched on his nose, something he only wore when he was deep in research. He looked up. Close the door. I did. What did you find? Martin pulled off his glasses. Her name isn't Vanessa Pierce. My jaw tightened. What is it? Victoria Castellano, 38, not 33. Disbarred California attorney, 2017. Client fraud. He slid a document across the desk. Official State Bar letterhead. Victoria Ann Castellano. Same sharp face, same cold eyes. She filed a name change in 2018. Martin continued. Became Vanessa Pierce. Legal but deliberate. She was burying her past. Why? Because she's done this before. 3 times I can confirm. He turned a yellow legal pad toward me. Names, dates, lines connecting them like a murder board. Victim 1, California 2007 to 2009. David Lawrence Medical Supply Company, 8 million. Widower. Son had a pill problem. Victoria met him at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. 6 months later, married. She convinced the father to sign over 35% equity. Then they sold it back for $850,000 and divorced. Cold dread settled in my chest. What happened to the father? Heart attack 2010, 61 years old. Martin's voice softened. His daughter Rebecca said the stress destroyed him. She gave me a video statement. He turned his laptop toward me and pressed play. A woman in her late 40s sat on a couch, hands folded, tired eyes, graying hair. My name is Rebecca Lawrence. In 2007, Victoria Castellano targeted my brother when he was at his lowest, fresh out of rehab, trying to get clean. She went to his meetings, made him feel understood. 6 months later, they were married, and she'd convinced my father to hand over 1/3 of our business. She paused, swallowed. My father passed 8 months after they left. My brother relapsed. Victoria destroyed my family for $850,000. The video ended. I stared at the frozen frame. You said 3. Victim 2. Oregon 2010 to 2012. James Kowalski, Sr. Logging Business, 9 million. Widower. Son Michael, gambling problem. Same pattern, met at Gamblers Anonymous. Married. She faked a pregnancy, got the father to sign over 40% equity. When the pregnancy fell through, divorce. 1.2 million settlement. The son. Martin's jaw tightened. Michael Kowalski passed in 2012. Ruled accidental. Sister Margaret believes he couldn't live with the guilt. Jesus. She also gave a statement. He clicked play again. A woman in flannel on a porch swing fireplace behind her. My name is Margaret Kowalski. In 2010, Vanessa Pierce married my brother Michael. He was struggling with gambling. She told him she was pregnant. My father wanted to give his grandson a future, so he signed over 40% of our business. Her voice cracked. There was no baby. She took the money and left. We lost Michael 2 years later. She's a predator. She finds broken men and destroys them. Tears streaked her face. The video stopped. My hands were shaking. Victim 3. Martin said quietly. Raymond Huang, Nevada 2013 to 2014. Casino owner, 15 million. Widower. Son with gambling addiction. Vanessa made her move, but Huang hired a PI early. She'd stolen $400,000 before they caught her. Fled before charges were filed. I looked at the legal pad. 3 families. 3 widowed fathers. 3 addicted sons. 1 father gone. 1 son gone. And now Robert. She targeted him, I said, voice hoarse. Someone vulnerable. Someone with a father who has money. Martin nodded. You're victim 4, and she's been planning this for years. I sat down hard. Robert's hollow eyes. Vanessa's cold demand. 40%. How did she find him? I asked. How did she know about us? Martin closed his laptop. I don't know yet. Tomorrow. I stared at the stacks of evidence 3 shattered families laid bare. Monday, I said. She's walking into my office thinking she's got me cornered. Martin met my eyes. Then we make sure she's wrong. Sunday morning, I met Martin at a diner 20 miles outside Houston, just off Highway 90. The kind of place truckers stopped at for coffee and pancakes at 4 a.m. with vinyl booths, and a waitress who'd been working there longer than I'd been in business. We sat in the back corner away from the handful of other customers, 2 cups of black coffee between us and a folder Martin had brought. He'd been up all night. I could see it in his face, the dark circles under his eyes, the way his shoulders slumped forward. But his eyes were sharp, focused. I found out how she got to Robert, Martin said, sliding a printout across the table. It was a screenshot from a website, Gamblers Anonymous meeting locations in Houston. She's been going to GA meetings all over the city, not because she has a problem, because she's hunting. I stared at the paper. 5 different locations highlighted in yellow. How do you know? I called 3 of them. Asked if anyone remembered a woman named Vanessa Pierce attending meetings in 2018. 2 facilitators confirmed it. She showed up for about 6 months at the Westheimer location, then stopped coming. That's the same meeting Robert was attending back then. My jaw tightened. She scouted him. Yeah, she listened to his story, learned about his gambling, his debts, his family. Then she made her move. Martin pulled out another document. Robert's current debt breaks down like this: $180,000 to Westside Capital. That's a collections agency that bought his loans from the original creditors. Another 120,000 spread across credit cards. 50,000 in personal loans from people I can't trace yet. 350,000. The same number from Friday. I contacted Westside Capital yesterday. Martin continued. Told them I was representing a family member interested in settling the debt. They're willing to sell it for $95,000. Cash. I looked up. You want me to buy his debt? I want us to buy it. Mitchell Construction has the liquidity. Once we own it, Robert doesn't owe Westside anymore, he owes you. And you can set whatever terms you want. And Vanessa. She doesn't know. She thinks you're coming to the table Monday with nothing but guilt and fear. We're going to let her keep thinking that. Martin leaned forward. Texas is a one-party consent state. You can record the meeting without telling them. Everything she says, every threat she makes, it's all admissible. What's the play? We draft documents that look like an equity transfer. 40% of Mitchell Construction signed over to Robert. But buried in the legal language, it's actually a secured promissory note, a loan with personal guarantee. If she pushes Robert to sign, if she makes demands, we've got her on tape for coercion. And when the dust settles, you're not giving up equity. You're his creditor. You control the terms. I sat back processing. It was smart. Risky, but smart. There's one more thing, I said quietly. Martin waited. I pulled out my phone, opened a hidden folder I hadn't shown anyone, ever. 6 years ago when I told Robert we were done, I didn't tell him the whole truth. I turned the phone toward Martin. The folder was labeled Robert, Support. Inside were bank statements, emails, receipts. 6 years of records. After I gave him that $620,000 to clear his debts in 2014, I told him he was cut off. But I couldn't just let him fall. I scrolled through the files. A week after he left, I called Miguel Rodriguez. He runs Rodriguez Plumbing. I asked him to hire Robert. $18 an hour basic apprentice work. I paid Miguel $500 a month under the table to keep him on, even when Robert showed up late or missed shifts. Martin's eyes widened. Brandon. That lasted a year. When Miguel's contracts dried up, I called Tom Henderson, Henderson Electric. Same deal. $400 a month. Robert worked on the Westheimer project. He didn't know I was the general contractor. I kept scrolling. Then Roger Walsh at Prestige Property Management. Leasing agent job. $300 a month. That was 2016 to 2017. Then Daniel Foster at Gateway Commercial Real Estate. $200 a month. That one lasted 2 years. Right up until Robert met Vanessa. Martin was staring at me. How much total? $28,000 over 6 years. None of them told Robert. They all said he was a decent worker, good with his hands, reliable until 2018. Then he started missing shifts, showing up distracted. Every one of them said the same thing: something changed when the woman came into his life. Jesus, Brandon, you never abandoned him. I was angry. I said, my voice rough. When I was furious at the choices he made. But he's my son. Sarah would have never forgiven me if I just walked away. So I didn't. I stayed in the shadows. I made sure he had work even if he didn't know it was me. Martin closed the folder, slid my phone back. Does Vanessa know about this? No way she could. The contractors never told Robert, and I paid them through personal checks, not company accounts. Then we use it. Martin's voice was firm. Monday morning when she's sitting there making demands, thinking she's got you cornered, you show Robert what you've been doing. You prove she's been lying to him, that you never sabotaged him, that you've been protecting him the whole time. I nodded slowly. It felt like exposing a wound. But Martin was right. We do this tomorrow, Martin said. I'll call Westside Capital first thing, wire the 95,000 by noon. I'll draft the loan documents and have them ready by 8 a.m. Monday. You bring the recording device. We sit down with them at 9, and we end this." I met his eyes across the table. 30 years of friendship. 30 years of building something together. He'd been there when Sarah passed. He'd been there through every hard decision I'd ever made. "Thank you," I said. He reached across the table, shook my hand. "Monday, 9 a.m. We protect your son even if he doesn't see it yet." I left the diner and didn't go home. I drove to the Riverside site, the $5.2 million project, half-framed empty on a Sunday afternoon. I needed to stand in the middle of something real, something I'd built with my own hands. Because tomorrow I was going to fight for my son. The Riverside site was quiet in the late afternoon sun. Steel beams rose 20 feet into the air, skeletal and unfinished, casting long shadows across the concrete foundation. No walls yet. No roof. Just the bones of something that would eventually become a municipal services building, offices, meeting rooms, a public records archive. $5.2 million worth of work. And we were only 3 months in. I walked through the frame boots, echoing on the poured concrete. The air smelled like metal and dust, and that particular scent of raw construction, sawdust and diesel and possibility. I'd spent my entire adult life on sites like this, watching empty lots turn into something real. Something that would still be standing 50 years from now. I stopped in what would eventually be the main lobby, looked up at the exposed beams. Sarah and I had started Mitchell Construction in 1985. One truck. A $10,000 loan from her father. A dream we'd built together, working 18-hour days, 7 days a week for the first 5 years. She'd done the books while I framed houses. We'd brought Robert to job sites in a car seat, let him nap in the truck while we poured foundations. She'd been gone 8 years now. Passed in 2012, 6 months after they found the cancer. It had moved fast, too fast. Colon, then liver, then everywhere. By the time we caught it, there was nothing to do but make her comfortable and say goodbye. Robert had been 27 then, still working, steady, still hopeful. He'd fallen apart after she was gone. We both had in different ways. I'd buried myself in work. He'd buried himself in poker tables and bets he couldn't afford. I wondered, standing there in the empty frame of a building that didn't exist yet, if things would have been different if Sarah had lived. Would Robert have turned to gambling? Would he have met Vanessa? Or would Sarah's presence, her warmth, her stubborn belief that our son could be better, have kept him grounded? I pulled out my phone, opened the folder Martin and I had talked about this morning. Robert, support. 6 years of bank statements and emails. I scrolled through them slowly, looking for a pattern I'd missed. Rodriguez Plumbing, 2014 to 2015. Robert worked 48 weeks, called in sick 6 times. Miguel's note said, "Good kid, just needs structure." Henderson Electric, 2015 to 2016. Robert worked 50 weeks, no absences. Tom's note said, "Reliable picks, things up fast." Prestige Property Management, 2016 to 2017. Robert worked 11 months, started missing showings in the last 2. Roger's note said, "Great with tenants until he got distracted." Gateway Commercial Real Estate, 2018 to 2020. Robert worked solid for the first 6 months. Then the absences started. Daniel's notes from October 2018 said, "Rob's changed. Doesn't return calls. Looks exhausted." October 2018. That lined up with when Martin said Vanessa had been attending the GA meetings. She hadn't just found Robert, she'd dismantled him, piece by piece. My phone buzzed. Email from Martin. Subject line, "One more thing." I opened it. "Brandon, my P. I followed her to a coffee shop this afternoon, Magnolia on Kirby. She left a journal on the table when she went to the bathroom. He had 3 minutes, took photos of every page. Forwarding now. This is bad. M attached were 12 images. I clicked the first one. Handwriting, neat, deliberate. Vanessa's, March 12, 2020. R's father equals Brandon Mitchell, 62, widower. Mitchell Construction, LLC, $12 million annual revenue. Owns company outright, no board, no partners, except CFO Martin Reynolds, minimal equity. Vulnerable. No wife, estranged son. Perfect target. I felt my chest tighten. I clicked to the next photo. April 3rd, 2020, trigger gambling relapse. Introduce R to Marco Loan Shark, contact Dallas. Small bets first build confidence. Then larger. Debt accumulation, target $300,000 plus within 18 months. Need leverage for equity demand. Next photo. September 7th, 2020. Debt at $220,000. Escalate. Marco pushing hard. R stressed. Good. Stress equals desperation. Desperation equals compliance. By January, we move on, father. Next. February 15th, 2020. Demand structure, 40% equity, not cash. Equity easier to liquidate quietly. If he signs, we sell shares within 6 months. Target extraction, $3.2 million, 40% of $8 million assessed value, conservative estimate. Exit before he realizes. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Next photo. March 20th, 2020. Backup plan. If father refuses, threaten elder abuse, claims financial exploitation, coercion. Tie him up in court, drag company through mud. He'll settle to protect reputation. Either way, we win. Last photo. March 22nd, 2020, after Mitchell next target, Austin, Texas. Tech exec, $18 million, net worth, widower, son in rehab, opioids. Already scouting NA meetings. Timeline, June 2020. I stared at the screen. The sun was setting behind the steel beams, casting the site in orange and shadow. Vanessa Victoria, whoever she was, had planned every step, every move. She'd manipulated my son like he was a piece on a chessboard, and she was already looking ahead to her next victim. Cold rage settled in my gut. Not the hot explosive kind, the kind that turned into focus, into resolve. I forwarded the photos to my personal email, then deleted Martin's message. If this went to court, I wanted plausible deniability for how we got the evidence. Then I stood, looked around the Riverside site one more time. This was what I built. Solid, real, honest work. Foundations that wouldn't crack, beams that wouldn't bend. I wasn't going to let a con artist take it, and I wasn't going to let her take my son. I pulled out my phone, typed a message to Martin. I'm ready. Tomorrow we protect Robert, even if he doesn't know it yet. I hit send. Then I walked back to my truck, climbed in, and drove home. For the first time in 3 days, I slept. 8:55 a.m. Monday morning. I sat at my desk, staring at my phone lying face down in the shallow drawer to my right. The recording app was already running, red dot glowing faintly through the crack. Texas is a one-party consent state. I could record every word they said without telling them, and it would all be admissible in court. In the conference room next door, Martin sat with a baby monitor receiver on the table in front of him. The old kind we used on construction sites when we needed to communicate across a build. The transmitter was hidden behind a stack of binders on my bookshelf. Backup recording. If something went wrong, if I needed him, he'd hear everything. I glanced at the clock on my computer screen. 8:57. My hands were steady. The cold anger I'd felt yesterday standing in that empty construction frame reading Vanessa's journal had hardened into something sharp, something I could use. At 9 o'clock exactly, I heard Maria's voice in the hallway outside my office. "Mr. Mitchell, your 9 o'clock appointment is here." I stood, smoothed the front of my shirt, took one slow breath. "Send them in." The door opened. Robert came through first, shoulders hunched forward, eyes cast down at the floor. He wore the same wrinkled blue button-down he'd had on Friday, like he'd been wearing it for 3 days straight. His hair was uncombed. His face looked thinner, older. Vanessa followed 2 steps behind. Charcoal gray blazer today, perfectly tailored. White blouse, black slacks. She moved with the same calculated confidence, scanning my office like she was appraising it. Her eyes lingered on the bookshelves, the framed licenses on the wall, the window overlooking the equipment yard. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the 2 chairs across from my desk. They sat. Robert kept his eyes down. Vanessa met mine without blinking. I lowered myself into my chair, folded my hands on the desk. "Let's talk." Vanessa leaned forward immediately, her mouth opening to speak. "Mr. Mitchell, we're here to finalize." "I wasn't talking to you." I kept my voice flat. Even. I looked past her directly at Robert. "I want to hear from my son. Not his lawyer, not his handler. Him." Robert's head lifted slowly. His eyes, brown like Sarah's, were bloodshot, dark circles underneath. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "Dad." The word came out rough, cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. I owe $350,000. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could dig myself out. But the interest kept climbing, and the calls won't stop, and His voice broke. He swallowed hard. "I don't know what else to do." I let the silence settle for 3 full seconds. Then I asked, "Who do you owe the money to?" Robert pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket, unfolded it with shaking hands. "West Side Capital. That's $180,000. That's the biggest chunk. Then credit cards, Chase, American Express, Discover. About $120,000 total. And personal loans, $50,000. Personal loans from who? Khalif friends. A guy named Marco in Dallas. Some other people." Marco. The name from Vanessa's journal. The loan shark she'd introduced him to deliberately. I kept my expression neutral. Didn't react. "How did you meet Vanessa?" I asked. Robert glanced sideways at her, then back to me. "Gamblers Anonymous? Spring of 2018. I was trying to get help. She was at the same meeting. She understood what I was going through." "She understood?" "Yeah. She dealt with it before. Or her brother had. I don't remember exactly, but she didn't judge me. She just listened. She helped me." I shifted my gaze to Vanessa. She was watching me carefully, expression unreadable. "What's your full legal name?" I asked her directly. A pause, just a fraction of a second too long. "Vanessa Pierce." "Maiden name?" "That's not relevant to this discussion, Mr. Mitchell." "I think it is." Her jaw tightened slightly. "We're here to resolve Robert's financial situation, not discuss my personal, your full legal name," I repeated slower this time. "For the record." She held my stare. Another pause. "Pierce. Vanessa Marie Pierce." I picked up the pen on my desk, wrote slowly on the legal pad in front of me, spoke aloud as I wrote each word. Vanessa Marie Pierce. Maiden name. I paused deliberately. Unknown. I set the pen down. Vanessa's expression didn't change, but I saw the slight tension in her shoulders. I turned back to Robert. Do you know what happened to David Lawrence Jr. in California? Robert blinked. Confusion spread across his face. Who? David Lawrence Jr. His father owned a medical supply distribution company in San Diego. $8 million operation. I kept my tone conversational. What about Michael Kowalski, Oregon? His father ran a logging business. I don't... Robert looked at Vanessa, then back at me. I don't know who those people are, Dad. I've never heard those names. I leaned back in my chair, looked directly at Vanessa. Your wife does. Vanessa didn't flinch, but I saw it a flicker in her eyes. Just for a split second. She was calculating. Deciding whether to deny, deflect, or attack. She chose deflection. Mr. Mitchell, she said, voice calm, measured, professional. I don't know what you're implying, but we didn't come here to play games. Robert is in a desperate situation. You have the resources to help him. We're offering you a clean solution transfer, 40% equity in Mitchell Construction to Robert, and we'll manage the debt repayment ourselves. No cash out of your pocket. No impact on your day-to-day operations. Everyone walks away whole. Except I lose 40% of my company. You invest 40% in your son's future, she corrected smoothly. Think of it as an early inheritance. It's his birthright. You're simply formalizing it now when he needs it most. I let her words hang in the air. Watched her. She was good. Polished. Every syllable carefully chosen. Her posture perfect. No cracks in the facade. Before we discuss equity, I said quietly, I want to show Robert something. I reached down, opened the drawer on the left side of my desk, not the one with the recording phone, and pulled out a thick blue folder. Worn edges. Papers inside organized with tabs. I slid it across the desk toward Robert. These are records I've kept for the last 6 years, I said, meeting my son's eyes. Things I never told you. Things I should have told you a long time ago. Robert stared at the folder. His hands stayed flat on his knees. He didn't reach for it. Vanessa's eyes narrowed, just slightly. Open it, I said. Robert's hand moved slowly toward the folder. His fingers trembled as they touched the worn blue edge. He pulled it closer, hesitated for a moment, then flipped it open. Inside were documents, dozens of them, organized with color-coded tabs, yellow, green, blue, pink. Pay stubs clipped together, bank statements with lines highlighted in red, printed emails, handwritten notes on Mitchell Construction letterhead. Robert lifted the first page. A pay stub. Rodriguez Plumbing, April 2014. His name in the employee field. $18 per hour. He looked up at me, confusion written across his face. I leaned forward, resting my forearms on the desk. After I paid off your debts in 2014, after I gave you that $620,000 and told you we were done, I lied. Robert blinked. What? I told you I was cutting you off, that you were on your own until you got help. That was true in a way. I wasn't going to hand you cash. I wasn't going to bail you out again. I paused, held his gaze. But I couldn't just walk away. You're my son. So I did something else. I reached across the desk, pulled the folder toward me, and separated the documents into 4 distinct stacks. Spread them out in front of Robert like I was laying down cards. Stack 1, I said, tapping the first pile. Rodriguez Plumbing. Robert stared at the papers. The day after you left my house in 2014, the day after I told you we were done, I called Miguel Rodriguez. I'd worked with him for years. Good man. Honest. I asked him to hire you, told him you needed steady work, needed structure. $18 an hour. Basic apprentice wages. I pulled out a highlighted bank statement. This is my account. Every month for 12 months I paid Miguel $500 under the table. A subsidy, so he could keep you on payroll even when work was slow, even when you showed up late, even when you made mistakes. Robert picked up one of the pay stubs. His hands were shaking harder now. Miguel told me you were good with your hands, I continued. Said you just needed to show up. And you did, Robert. For a whole year you showed up. I moved to the second stack. Stack 2. Henderson Electric. Robert's eyes followed my hand. When Miguel's contracts dried up in 2015, I called Tom Henderson. Same deal, $400 a month. You worked on the Westheimer Road project, 6 months of commercial wiring retrofit work on a strip mall. You didn't know I was the general contractor on that job. Tom never told you. I slid a time card across the desk. Robert's signature at the bottom of each week. 52 weeks. No absences. Tom said you were reliable, fast learner. He wanted to keep you on permanent, but I told him I had another opportunity lined up for you. Third stack. Prestige Property Management. Robert was staring at me now, not at the papers, at me, Roger Walsh, 2016 to 2017. Leasing agent, $300 a month. You showed apartments, handled tenant inquiries, did property tours. Roger said you were great with people. Tenants liked you. You had a knack for reading what they needed. I paused deliberately. Let the next part land. Until about 6 months into the job, late 2017, you started missing showings, coming in late. Roger said something changed. He didn't know what. I shifted my gaze to Vanessa. Held it. That's right around the time you two met. Isn't it? Vanessa's face remained stone, but her eyes flickered. Just for a second. I turned back to Robert. Stack 4, Gateway Commercial Real Estate. Robert's breathing was uneven now. Shallow. Daniel Foster, 2018 to 2020, 2 years, $200 a month. You worked commercial property sales. Daniel said you were his most reliable agent for the first 6 months. Then late 2018 things changed again. You started missing client meetings, stopped returning calls. Daniel called me in early 2019, said he didn't know what was going on with you, but he'd keep you on as long as he could because I'd vouched for you. I pulled out the last document, a bank statement from February 2020. The final payment to Daniel Foster, $200. The last subsidy I'd paid before Robert walked into my office last Friday. 6 years, I said quietly. 4 jobs, $28,000. I paid these men to give you a chance, to give you work, to keep you standing. Robert's eyes were wet. His jaw was working, but no sound came out. I never abandoned you, I said, and my voice was rougher now, the emotion breaking through. I was angry. I'm still angry at some of the choices you made. But I never stopped trying to help you. I never stopped believing you could get back on your feet. Vanessa spoke for the first time since we'd opened the folder. Her voice was sharp, controlled. This is manipulation, Robert. He's trying to make you feel guilty. He's rewriting history to know. I cut her off without looking at her. I kept my eyes on my son. I'm not rewriting anything. I'm showing him the truth you've been hiding from him. Robert picked up one of the emails. It was from Roger Walsh, dated November 2017. Brandon, Rob missed another showing today. Third one this month. He said he had a family emergency, but I think something else is going on. He's distracted. Different. I'll keep him on like we agreed, but I wanted you to know. Roger Roberts' hands were shaking so badly, the paper rattled. You told me. His voice cracked. He looked at Vanessa. You told me he sabotaged my jobs. You said he called my bosses. You said he got me fired. Vanessa's expression didn't change. Robert, you're not thinking clearly. You lied. Robert's voice was louder now, stronger. You told me he destroyed those opportunities. You said he was controlling me, punishing me. But he was helping me the whole time. He was controlling you, Vanessa insisted. I'm paying people to watch you to report back to him. That's not help, Robert. That's surveillance. That's love, I said quietly. The room went silent. Robert looked at me. Tears were running down his face now. He didn't wipe them away. Why didn't you tell me? He whispered. Because you needed to believe you earned it, I said. You needed to believe you could stand on your own, and you could have Robert. You were doing it. Until she convinced you I was the enemy. Robert's gaze shifted slowly back to Vanessa. And for the first time since Friday, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't seen in 6 years. Doubt. Vanessa stood, chair scraping. We're leaving. This is a waste of... Sit down. My voice flat. Final. She stopped, looked at Robert. He wasn't moving. She sat. I turned my laptop toward Robert. Oh, watch this. 2 videos. 3 minutes. I pressed play. A woman appeared on screen. Late 40s, graying blonde hair, tired eyes. Living room background, beige couch bookshelf. My name is Rebecca Lawrence. In 2007, Victoria Castellano met my brother David at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting in San Diego. He was 26, fresh from rehab fighting painkiller addiction after a car accident. Robert leaned forward. Victoria attended his meetings, made him feel understood. They married 6 months later. She convinced my father to sign over 35% of our medical supply business worth $8 million, telling him it would give David a stake in his future. Rebecca's hands tightened in her lap. 3 months later, Victoria and David sold their shares for $850,000, then divorced. David relapsed within 2 weeks. My father had a heart attack 8 months later. 61 years old. The doctors said stress-related. I say heartbreak. Tears welled but didn't fall. Victoria took $850,000 and destroyed my family. We're not the only ones. Video ended. Robert sat frozen. I clicked the second file. Different room. Wood paneling stone fireplace. A woman in flannel early 40s, harder face. Margaret Kowalski, Bend, Oregon. In 2010, Vanessa Pierce, that's what she called herself, met my brother Michael at Gamblers Anonymous in Portland. 4 months later, told him she was pregnant. Her jaw clenched. My father signed over 40% of our logging business for his future grandchild. 3 months later, Vanessa claimed miscarriage, filed for divorce, took $1.2 million in settlement. Margaret's voice dropped. Michael passed in 2012. Overdose, ruled accidental. But I know he couldn't live with the guilt of what she made him do. She's a predator. She finds broken men and destroys them. Screen went black. Silence pressed down like a weight. Robert's face was chalk white. His knuckles gripped the chair arms. I looked at Vanessa. Victoria Castellano. Disbarred California attorney 2017 for client fraud. Name change filed 2018. 3 victims, David Lawrence, Michael Kowalski, Raymond Huang in Nevada. You have a pattern. You can't prove that, Vanessa said coolly. I don't need to prove it to a court. I need to prove it to him. I pulled printed pages from my desk. 12 sheets. This is your journal. You left it at a coffee shop Wednesday afternoon. My investigator photographed it. Vanessa's mask slipped. Eyes widened. Just a flicker. Then stone again. I pushed the pages to Robert. Read it, out loud. His hands shook as he picked up the first page. March 12th, 2020. Voice barely audible. R's father, Brandon Mitchell, 63, widower. Mitchell Construction, 12 million annual revenue. Owns outright. Vulnerable. He looked at Vanessa. Back down. April 3rd. Trigger gambling relapse. Introduce R to Marco Loan Shark Contact Dallas. Build debt 300,000 plus. Need leverage for equity demand. Voice cracking now. September 7. Debt 220. Escalate. Marco pushing. R stressed. Good. Stress equals desperation. Desperation equals compliance. Next page. Hands rattling the paper. February 15th. Demand 40% equity, not cash. Easier liquidate. If he signs, sell shares 6 months. Target extraction $3.2 million. Robert stopped, pages trembling. You planned this, voice breaking. All of it, Marco's poker games you introduced me. Said he was a friend. The loans you co-signed them. You said you were helping me manage. He couldn't finish. Vanessa said nothing. Stone face. She wasn't helping you, I said quietly. She created your debt, built it deliberately, so she could walk you in here and demand 40%. 3.2 million. That was her target. Robert's fingers went slack. Pages scattered across the desk. I need to leave. I can't. Not yet, I said. One more thing. If you're still watching, comment next to let me know you're hooked. Fair warning, the story includes dramatized moments that aren't fully factual. You're welcome to close the video if it's not your thing. But if you want to see how this unfolds, stick around. It gets intense. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a leather folder. Thick. Heavy. Martin had dropped it off at 7:30 this morning while Robert and Vanessa were still driving over. I set it on the desk. Opened it. 3 documents inside, each flagged with a yellow tab. Behind me, the door to the conference room opened. Martin stepped through, coffee mug in hand, and took up position near the door. Casual, like he'd just wandered in. But his eyes were sharp. Focused. Robert looked up at him, confused. "Ah, Martin." "Morning, Robert," Martin said evenly. "Your dad asked me to sit in. Hope that's all right." Robert nodded slowly. Vanessa's gaze flicked between Martin and me, calculating. I pulled the first document from the folder, slid it across the desk toward Robert. "This is a debt purchase agreement," I said. "I bought your $180,000 debt from Westside Capital this weekend. Paid $95,000 for it. Cash. As of this moment, you don't owe them anything. You owe me." Robert blinked. "What? Why would you?" "Because I'm your father, and because I can offer you something Westside never would, terms you can actually meet. 0 interest, payments you can afford, and a path to clear it without destroying your life." I tapped the second document. "This is a secured promissory note. You're going to sign it. $2,500 a month, 3% interest, 5-year term. If you make every payment on time, I'll forgive the interest at the end and reduce the principal by 20%. Robert stared at the paper. His lips moved slightly, doing the math. That protects you, I continued. It also protects me. This is a legal contract. If you default, there are consequences. But if you stick to it, you walk away clear. Vanessa leaned forward. He's not signing anything without a lawyer reviewing. I turned to her. Cut her off. You're not his lawyer. In fact, you're not a lawyer at all. You were disbarred, so you don't get a say in this. Her jaw tightened. I pulled the third document from the folder. This one was thicker. Clipped together. I slid it toward Robert but kept my eyes on Vanessa. This, I said, is a petition for divorce, filed on behalf of Robert Mitchell citing fraud, misrepresentation, and coercion in the inducement of marriage. Attached is an emergency motion to freeze all jointly held assets pending a full investigation into financial misconduct. Vanessa's eyes went wide, just for a split second. Then her mask slammed back down. You can't, she started. I'm not filing it, I interrupted. Robert is, if he chooses. I shifted my gaze to my son. His face was pale, drawn, but his eyes were clearer than they'd been in days. I can't make you leave her, Robert, I said quietly. That's your decision, but I can give you the tools to do it safely. This petition is already filled out, pre-filed with the county clerk's office pending your signature. If you sign it, Martin will walk it down to the courthouse this afternoon. You'll be legally separated by end of business today. And she won't be able to touch anything, not your credit, not your wages, not your truck. Nothing. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Crushing. Robert stared at the divorce petition. His hand hovered over it, trembling. Robert, don't listen to him, Vanessa said, and her voice had changed. Softer now. Pleading. He's manipulating you. He's using your guilt to control you. We can fight this together. We can, like you manipulated me. Robert's voice was quiet, hoarse, but steady. Vanessa stopped. Robert picked up the pen lying on my desk, pulled the promissory note toward him, read it slowly, carefully, then signed his name at the bottom. Neat. Deliberate. Then he pulled the divorce petition toward him, flipped through the pages, stopped at the signature line. He looked at Vanessa. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then he signed. He set the pen down, pushed both documents back toward me. Didn't say a word. I turned to Vanessa, kept my voice calm, professional. You have two choices. You can leave quietly right now, or I can call the Houston Police Department and play them the recording I've been making since 9 o'clock this morning. Every word you've said, every demand you've made. Texas Penal Code 31.03, theft by deception, extortion, plus the journal evidence Martin's investigator photographed. Your call. Vanessa stood, slowly. She didn't look at Robert, didn't look at me. She reached down, picked up her purse from the floor beside her chair, and slung it over her shoulder. She walked to the door, stopped with her hand on the handle, turned back. You're making a mistake, Robert, she said, her voice flat, empty. Robert looked up at her, and for the first time since he'd walked into my office on Friday, I heard strength in his voice. No, he said. I made the mistake 2 years ago. This is me fixing it. Vanessa held his gaze for 3 seconds. Then she turned the handle and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. The room was silent, except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of a forklift beeping in the equipment yard outside. Robert sat in his chair, staring at the 2 documents he'd just signed. His hands rested flat on his knees. His shoulders began to shake. Then he started to cry. Not the quiet kind, the kind that came from somewhere deep, 6 years deep. The kind that had been building since the day he walked away from me at that diner in 2014. I stood, walked around the desk, sat down in the chair Vanessa had just vacated, and I put my hand on my son's shoulder. Robert moved in that night. I heard his truck pull into the driveway around 8 o'clock, the engine cutting off, the door slamming shut. I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I hadn't touched, still thinking about the way he'd broken down in my office, the way his shoulders had shaken, the way 6 years of pain had come pouring out all at once. When I opened the front door, he was standing on the porch with a canvas duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a red toolbox in his other hand. That was it. Everything he owned in the world apparently fit into 2 items. "Hey," he said quietly. "Come in." He stepped inside, looked around like he was seeing the place for the first time. It was the same house I'd bought after selling the one he grew up in. Small, plain. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, built in the 70s. Nothing fancy. "Guest rooms down the hall," I said. "Second door on the left." "Thanks." He walked down the hall, disappeared into the room, and closed the door. I stood there for a minute, listening to the sound of him moving around. Footsteps, the creak of the bed frame. Then silence. The first 3 days were quiet. Too quiet. Robert slept most of the time. 14, 15 hours a day. I'd hear him get up around noon, shuffle to the bathroom, then go back to bed. He barely spoke. Barely ate. I'd leave food on the counter, sandwiches, leftovers, and most of it would still be there in the morning. I didn't push. Dr. Lin had warned me during our first joint session on Wednesday. He's been running on adrenaline and fear for 2 years. Now that he's safe, his body's going to shut down. Let him rest. So I let him rest. On the 4th day, I came home from work around 6 and found him outside in the backyard. He'd pulled my toolbox out of the garage and was crouched down by the fence hammer in one hand, measuring the gap between 2 broken slats. The fence had been busted for 2 years. A windstorm had knocked a section loose, and I'd kept meaning to fix it, but never got around to it. I stood at the back door and watched him work. He didn't see me. He was focused, methodical, measuring twice before fitting the new boards into place, driving nails with steady, even strokes. His hands moved like he knew what he was doing. 6 hours later, when the sun was setting, he finally stood up, wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, and looked at his work. The fence was solid, straight, fixed. He glanced back at the house and saw me standing there. "Needed to do something with my hands," he said. "Looks good." He nodded, gathered the tools, and came inside. He ate dinner that night. Not much, but more than he had in 3 days. Day 5, Friday, Robert asked if he could borrow my truck. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Gamblers Anonymous meeting, St. Mark's Church, 7 p.m. I handed him the keys. "You want me to come with you?" "No. I need to do this myself." He left at 6:30 and didn't come back until 9:15. When he walked in, he looked lighter, not happy exactly, but less weighed down. "How'd it go?" I asked. "Good. I got a new sponsor. His name's Frank. He's been clean from gambling for 11 years. "That's good, Robert. That's really good." He nodded, handed me the keys, and went to his room. Saturday morning, I brought it up over coffee. "I want you to see someone," I said. "A therapist. Her name's Dr. Lin. She specializes in trauma and addiction." I've been seeing her since your mother passed. Robert looked up from his mug. You've been seeing a therapist. For 8 years, helped me more than I thought it would. He was quiet for a minute. I don't know if I'm not asking you to go alone, I interrupted. I want us to do a session together, just one. If you hate it, we never go back. He stared at his coffee. Then slowly, he nodded. Okay. One session. Sunday evening, we sat in the living room. No TV, no distractions. Just the two of us and the hum of the air conditioner. Robert was the one who spoke first. Why did you do it? He asked. Why did you buy my debt? I set my coffee cup down. Because $95,000 is nothing compared to losing you. He looked at me, and I saw the doubt in his eyes. The question he'd been carrying for 6 years. I thought you hated me, he said quietly. After everything I did, the gambling, the money, the way I walked out on you, I thought you were done with me. I was angry, I said. I'm still angry at some of the choices you made. But I never stopped loving you, Robert. Not for one single day in 6 years. His eyes welled up. He looked away, rubbed his face with both hands. I don't deserve that, he whispered. You're my son. You don't have to deserve it. We sat there in the silence for a long time. Outside, I could hear a dog barking, a car driving past, the neighbor's sprinkler system clicking on. Finally, Robert spoke again, his voice rough, tired. I keep getting these headaches, he said, almost like he was talking to himself. Past year, maybe longer. They're bad, really bad. I looked at him. You see a doctor about it? No. Vanessa said it was stress, from the debt, from everything. She gave me pills to help me sleep. Said they'd help with the headaches, too. Something cold settled in my chest. What kind of pills? I don't know. She bought them. Sleep aids, she said. I'd take one before bed and be out cold. I kept my face neutral. Didn't let him see the alarm bells going off in my head. You still taking them? No. I haven't had any since I left. Actually. He paused, rubbed his temples. The headaches are getting better. Not as bad as they were. I filed that away. Didn't push. Not yet. If they come back, I said carefully, we'll get you to a doctor, real doctor, get you checked out. Yeah. Okay. Monday morning, I woke up to the sound of the coffee maker running. It was 5:45 a.m. I walked into the kitchen and found Robert sitting at the table, fully dressed, hair combed, holding the promissory note I'd given him a week ago. He'd been reading it. The pages were worn at the edges like he'd folded and unfolded them a dozen times. He looked up when I came in. When do the payments start? He asked. I poured myself a cup of coffee, sat down across from him. First of next month, I said. $2,500. Due on the 1st. He nodded slowly. I don't have a job yet, but I will. I'll make the payment. I know you will. He folded the note carefully, slid it back into the envelope, and set it on the table. Thank you, he said, for everything. You're welcome. We sat there drinking coffee as the sun came up, and for the first time in 6 years, it felt like we were on the same side again. It was June when I realized the guest room didn't look like a guest room anymore. Robert had been living with me for 12 weeks. His clothes hung in the closet now. A stack of Gamblers Anonymous pamphlets sat on the nightstand next to a library book about carpentry. His work boots lined up by the door. It looked lived in. He'd fallen into a routine. GA meetings 3 times a week, Monday and Thursday evenings at St. Mark's, Saturday mornings at the community center. His sponsor, Frank, met him for coffee every Wednesday. Therapy with Dr. Lin once a week, solo sessions for him, joint sessions for us once a month. And he was working. Landscaping crews, handyman gigs, day labor, $12 to $15 an hour. Long days in the Texas heat, 50-hour weeks when he could get them. He'd come home exhausted, sunburned, but he'd smile when he showed me his paychecks. By mid-June, he'd made 5 payments on the note. $12,500 total. Right on time. He kept the receipts in an envelope on his dresser, organized by date. One Saturday afternoon, I was on the back porch with a beer and the Riverside Specs when Robert came outside. He had 2 bottles of water, passed one to me, and sat down. "Can we talk?" he asked. Of course. He was quiet for a minute, peeling the label off his bottle. Then he spoke, voice low. "I blamed you. For Mom. For her passing. When she was gone, I was so angry and you just kept working, building, like nothing happened. I thought you didn't care." I set my beer down. I cared so much I couldn't stop. If I stopped working, I'd have to feel it. So I built. I thought I was providing for us. "I know that now," Robert said. "Dr. Lin helped me see it. But back then, I didn't. I was 27 and my mom was gone and my dad was a stranger. So I pushed you away. And when you gave me the money in 2014, I felt like I'd failed you so badly, I could never fix it." I looked at him. His face was thinner but healthier. The dark circles fading. "There's something I never told you," I said. "About your mother's medical bills." Robert looked up. "The last 6 months, the treatments cost $40,000 a month. Insurance covered 60%. I paid the rest. $240,000 total." His eyes widened. 40,000 a month. I drained our savings, took out loans, sold things. I would have sold everything for one more day with her. His face went pale. "Dad, I didn't know. I didn't want you to know. You were dealing with enough." Robert stared at the fence he'd fixed 3 months ago. "So when you bailed me out in 2014, you'd already spent everything on Mom." "Yes. And you still gave me $620,000. I'd do it again. Both times. You and Sarah, you're what I built everything for." Robert put his face in his hands. His shoulders shook silently. I waited. After a minute, he wiped his eyes. "I want to pay you back. Not just the 180, the full 620. I don't know how long it'll take, but no." He blinked. "What?" "You owe me $180,000. That's the note. The rest $440, that was a gift. Fathers give gifts, Robert." "But that conversation is over," I said firmly. "You pay what you owe. The rest is done." He stared at me, then nodded slowly. We sat in silence, watching shadows stretch across the grass. Then Robert frowned, rubbed his forehead. "Wait," he said. "Did we already talk about this, about Mom's medical bills?" I looked at him. "No. First time I'm telling you." "Are you sure? Because I swear I remember." He trailed off, confusion crossing his face. "I could have sworn we had this conversation. Maybe last week." "We didn't." He rubbed his temples. "That's been happening a lot. I remember things that didn't happen. Or I don't remember things I did. Like there are gaps." Something cold slid down my spine. "How long?" "I don't know. A year, maybe longer." Vanessa said I was just stressed, that I was forgetting because I had too much on my mind. He laughed without humor. I believed her. I kept my voice calm. "Do you remember signing the investment papers, the ones you mentioned?" Robert hesitated. Sort of. I remember being at the table, her handing me a pen, but it's blurry, like watching it happen to someone else. Were you taking the sleep medication then? Yeah, every night. She'd give me one with dinner, said it would help me relax. He paused. Oh, why? Just trying to understand the timeline. Robert nodded slowly. He looked tired suddenly. I should go, he said, standing. I've got a landscaping job in Perlin tomorrow. Early start. Drive safe. He grabbed his water, headed inside, then stopped. Thanks, Dad, for telling me. About Mom. About everything. You're welcome. He left. A minute later, I heard his truck start up, the engine fading as he pulled away. I sat alone on the porch, staring at the fence, thinking about memory gaps and sleep medication, and the way Vanessa had controlled every part of his life. Something wasn't right. I pulled out my phone, called Dr. Lynn's office, got her voicemail. Dr. Lynn, it's Brandon Mitchell. I need to talk to you about Robert. It's important. Call me back. I hung up and sat there as the sun set, watching the sky turn orange and purple. The fence cast long shadows across the yard, and I waited for the phone to ring. Dr. Lynn called me back the Monday after that porch conversation with Robert. Brandon, you mentioned Robert's having memory issues. Can you be more specific? I was in my truck parked outside a hardware supply store. I described what Robert had told me, the gaps, the déjà vu, the blurry memories of signing documents while on sleep medication. How long has he been off the medication? She asked. 3 months, since he moved in with me. And the headaches? He says they're getting better. There was a pause. Then, Brandon, I'd like Robert to get a physical exam. Full blood work. I'm concerned about what was in those pills Vanessa gave him. If they contained benzodiazepines or something stronger that could explain the memory impairment. You think she was drugging him? I think it's worth investigating. But I don't want to alarm Robert right now, he's doing so well. Can you get him in for a routine checkup? Frame it as just standard medical care. I'll figure it out. Good. And Brandon, keep an eye on those memory gaps. If they get worse, we need to move faster. I hung up and sat there staring through the windshield at the traffic on Highway 59, and I felt the weight of what she wasn't saying. Vanessa had been poisoning him. I didn't tell Robert about the call. Not yet. He was working hard, staying clean, making progress. I didn't want to break him with something he couldn't change, but I kept Dr. Lynn's words in the back of my mind, and I waited for the right moment. By September, Robert had been working landscaping crews all summer. $15 an hour, sometimes $16, if the job was commercial. 50-hour weeks in the brutal Texas heat, mowing lawns, trimming hedges, laying sod for new subdivisions in Katy and Sugarland. He'd come home exhausted every evening, grass stains on his jeans, dirt under his fingernails. But he was proud. By the end of August, he'd made 6 payments on the note, $15,000, and saved another $8,000 in a separate account. One Friday evening, he came home and found me at the kitchen table with bid proposals. The Riverside project was moving into foundation and framing, and we needed to expand the crew. Robert grabbed a beer, sat down. Big project. Yeah, Riverside. 5.2 million. We're behind schedule. I need 8 more guys for the next 6 months. He nodded, took a sip. I set my calculator down. I want to hire you. Robert blinked. What? $18 an hour. 45 hours a week, guaranteed. You'd report to Marcus Thompson, he's the site foreman. Concrete work, framing whatever needs doing. It's hard work. Robert was quiet. People will think my son works for me. That's not nepotism. But you'll earn it. Every day. Marcus can fire you if you screw up. I won't interfere. What about the note? Payments continue. Same terms. This is you building your future. He stared at his beer. Can I think about it? Take the weekend. Saturday morning I called Marcus. Before we bring on new crew, I need them to get physicals, insurance requirement. Then I called Robert. If you're taking the job, you need a pre-employment physical Monday morning, company policy. This was my opening. Dr. Lynn's suggestion. Get him examined without alarming him. Okay, Robert said. I'll be there. Monday morning, I drove him to the clinic on Bel Air. Waited in the lobby while he went back. 30 minutes later, he came out with paperwork. How'd it go? Fine. Standard stuff. They took blood for lab work. Results in a few days. Thursday afternoon, Dr. Patel from the clinic called. Mr. Mitchell, I'm calling about Robert's blood work. Everything's normal, liver, kidneys all clear. But we found trace amounts of benzodiazepines. My grip tightened on the phone. What does that mean? Benzodiazepines are sedatives. Xanax, Valium, Ativan. Prescribed for anxiety or insomnia. Does Robert have a prescription? No. The levels are low trace amounts. Could be residual from months ago, but he mentioned headaches and memory issues during the exam. Benzodiazepines cause both especially long-term or high doses. What should I do? Follow up with his primary care. But Mr. Mitchell, he said his wife gave him sleep aids. If she was giving him benzodiazepines without a prescription, that's illegal. Those are controlled substances. Long-term use causes cognitive impairment. Is it permanent? Usually reversible once someone stops. Takes months, though. Thank you, Dr. Patel. I hung up and sat in my truck staring at nothing. Benzodiazepines, controlled substances, memory impairment. Vanessa had drugged him for over a year, and he didn't know. I didn't tell Robert, not yet. He was about to start a fresh job and I didn't want to derail him, but I called Martin that evening. I need you to look into something, I said. Quietly, Robert mentioned Vanessa had him invest $47,000 in some real estate deal. I need to know if it was real. You think she stole it? I know she drugged him. Now I need to know what else she did. I'll look into it. Sunday evening, Robert knocked on my office door. I thought about the job, he said. I want to take it. Good. But I start at the bottom. I don't want special treatment. I'll work as hard as anyone on that crew. I stood, shook his hand. Monday, 6 a.m. Don't be late. I won't. Monday morning, 5:45. I was at the Riverside site when Robert's truck pulled in. He parked, walked toward Marcus by the job trailer. Marcus looked up. You Mitchell's son? Yes, sir. Ever done commercial construction? No, sir. Marcus handed him a yellow hard hat, then a shovel. Foundation crew. We're pouring concrete Friday. Until then, you're digging footers, 8 feet deep, 30 feet long. Don't call me sir. Call me Marcus. Now get to work. Robert took the hard hat and shovel. Didn't hesitate. He walked to the site, put the hard hat on, and started digging. I stood watching, and for the first time in months, I felt something close to hope. By December, Robert had been on the Riverside crew for 3 months. Marcus gave me weekly updates. Not because I asked, he didn't know I was Robert's father at first. And by the time he figured it out, Robert had already proven himself. But Marcus would stop by my office every Friday afternoon with the crew time cards, and he'd mention things. Week 1. Your son's on time. Works hard. Keeps his head down. Week 6. Robert volunteered for the Saturday concrete pour. Didn't ask for overtime pay. Week 10. The crew likes him. He doesn't talk much, but he shows up. Week 12. Marcus came in with the time cards and a recommendation. I want Robert on the next project, he said, setting the paperwork on my desk. Lead laborer, not just crew. He's earned it. True, I looked up. You sure? He works like someone who's got something to prove, but not to you, to himself. That's the kind of guy I want on my team. Then he's yours. One evening in mid-December, I drove past the Riverside site on my way home. It was after 6, the sun already down, but I saw lights still on and a couple of trucks in the lot. I pulled in. Robert's truck was there. So was Tommy Reyes's, a crew member, early 30s, had been with us for about 2 years. I could hear voices coming from the equipment shed, the metallic clink of tools being cleaned and stored. I got out of my truck, quietly walked closer, but stayed in the shadows. I wasn't spying exactly. I just wanted to see how Robert was when I wasn't around. Man, I'm not gonna lie. Tommy was saying, when Marcus said we were getting the boss's son on the crew, I thought you were gonna be some spoiled contractor's kid who didn't know a hammer from a level. Robert laughed. I hadn't heard him laugh like that genuine easy in years. I was that kid, Robert said. That's exactly what I was. Spoiled, entitled, thought the world owed me something. So what changed? I hit bottom, lost everything, hurt everyone who cared about me. Then my dad gave me a chance to fix it. Not a handout, a chance. So that's what I'm doing. Fixing it. Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then, well, you're doing a hell of a job, man. Keep it up. They came out of the shed, locked it up, headed toward their trucks. I waited until they'd driven off before getting back in mine. When I got home, Robert was already there, showering off the day's work. I heard the water shut off, and a few minutes later, he came into the kitchen, hair still damp, pulling on a clean shirt. Hey, he said, didn't hear you come in? Just got here. Long day. Good day, though. Marcus told me he's recommending me for the next project. Lead laborer. I know. He mentioned it. Robert stopped, looked at me. You gonna let him do it? It's not my decision. It's Marcus's crew. If he says you've earned it, then you've earned it. Robert nodded slowly, and I saw something in his face, pride maybe, or relief, like he'd been waiting for someone to validate what he already knew about himself. Thanks, Dad. Don't thank me. Thank Marcus. You did the work. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat down at the table where I had my laptop open, and a stack of invoices spread out. You need help with that? He asked. If you're offering. For the next hour, we went through the invoices together. Robert was good with numbers, better than I expected. He caught a discrepancy in a lumber order, saved us about $1,200. When we finished, he leaned back in his chair, stretched. Hey, Dad, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you know anything about real estate LLCs? I looked up. Why? He shifted uncomfortably. Last year, Vanessa had me invest in one. Real estate development deal. Property flip in Dallas. I put in some money. My chest tightened. How much? I don't remember exactly. Maybe 40,000, 45, somewhere in there. You don't remember? That's the thing. I know I gave her the money. I remember writing checks. But when I try to find the paperwork now, I can't. And I don't really remember signing anything. It's like blurry. I kept my voice steady. Do you know the name of the LLC, VLP Investments, I think? Or VPL, something like that? He rubbed his forehead. God, I sound crazy. I invested $45,000, and I can't even remember the company name. You're not crazy, I said. Robert, did Vanessa have you sign documents at night after you'd taken the sleep medication? He paused, thought about it. Yeah, Actually, yeah. She'd bring me papers at the kitchen table, say they were tax forms or investment docs, and I'd sign them. I'd wake up the next morning and she'd say, "Remember you signed the LLC paperwork last night?" And I'd just believe her. Because I didn't remember not signing it. I felt the anger rising in my chest, cold, hard, focused. But I kept it off my face. "Where's the money now?" I asked. "I don't know. She said it was tied up in the investment, that we'd get returns in 18 months. But I can't find any records. No bank statements, no property deeds, nothing. It's like it never existed." I closed my laptop. "Let me look into this. Don't worry about it right now. You've got a good thing going with the crew. Focus on that. You think she stole it, don't you?" I met his eyes. "I think she lied to you about a lot of things, and I'm going to find out exactly what she did." Robert nodded slowly. He looked tired suddenly. "Okay. Go to bed. You've got an early start tomorrow." He stood, grabbed his beer bottle, tossed it in the recycling. "Thanks, Dad, for listening, for not thinking I'm an idiot." "You're not an idiot. You were manipulated. There's a difference." After he went to his room, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the closed laptop. Then I pulled out my phone and called Martin. It rang 4 times before he picked up. "Brandon, it's almost 10. What's wrong? We need to talk. Tomorrow. And bring that lawyer, Diana Torres. I need someone who knows criminal law." "What happened?" "Vanessa stole $47,000 from Robert, and I think she drugged him to do it." There was a long pause. Then Martin's voice, low and serious. "I'll be there at 8. Diana, too." "Good." I hung up and sat there in the quiet house, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of a truck driving past on the street outside, and I thought about all the ways I was going to make Vanessa pay for what she'd done to my son. By June, Robert and I had been doing Monday night blueprint sessions for 3 months. We'd start around 7 after he got home from the Riverside site. I'd spread the plans across my desk. Architectural drawings, structural specs, load calculations, and walk him through them step by step. How to read elevations, how to calculate material quantities, how to spot mistakes before they became expensive problems. He picked it up fast, faster than I expected. He had an eye for detail, a mind for numbers. By the 6th week, I handed him a real project, a $14 million hotel bid we were preparing for a developer in Sugar Land. "Estimate it," I said. "Materials, labor, timeline. Show me what you've learned." He worked on it for 2 weeks. Stayed up late, filled notebooks with calculations, called subcontractors for quotes. When he finally handed me the completed estimate, I went through it line by line. And he'd caught something I'd missed. A specification error in the roof truss design. If we'd submitted the bid as I'd written it, we would have been $55,000 short on materials. "You just saved us 55 grand, I said, and probably saved us from losing the project. Robert looked at me uncertain. Really? We're submitting your estimate. If we win this bid, it's because you earned it. We won. 2 weeks later, the developer called. 14 million 18-month timeline, groundbreaking in September. Robert was quiet that night. We sat on the back porch with beers, and he finally spoke. "I didn't do this for a promotion," he said. "I did it because it's right. Because it's what you and Mom built this company on, doing things right." I looked at my son and realized he was ready, not just for the business, for the truth. That weekend, while Robert was at a GA retreat, Martin came over. He had a folder, thicker than the one from March. "Phone records," Martin said, spreading them across the kitchen table. "Took months to get the subpoena, but we got them." Vanessa had a second phone, a burner. Martin had traced it through cell tower records. 15 late-night calls over 14 months, all to the same number. Marco Delgado, the loan shark who'd given Robert the poker loans. "They're not just business partners," Martin said. "Look at the call durations. 2 a.m., 3 a.m. calls lasting 40 minutes an hour. And I found hotel records. 4 seasons in Austin Marriott in Dallas. 8 nights over the past 18 months. Same rooms. Booked under Mr. and Mrs. Delgado." He slid a printed photo across the table. Security camera footage from a hotel lobby. Vanessa and a man, late 30s, dark hair, checking in together. Her hand on his arm around her waist. "She was sleeping with him," I said. "While Robert was at home, drugged unconscious every night." Martin confirmed. "They've been running this scam together. He provides the loans to build the debt. She drugs the victim, extracts the money. They split the proceeds." I stared at the photo, felt the rage building again, cold and sharp. "We have everything," Martin said. "The theft, fraud, drugging, identity theft, conspiracy. Diana says it's prosecutable. We just need Robert's statement." "How do we tell him?" "Carefully. He's in a good place right now. This is going to hurt him. Bad." I called Diana that night. "We need to move. How soon can you be ready?" "I can file charges this week. But Brandon, once we do this, it's public. Robert's going to have to testify. Face her in court. Are you sure he's ready?" I thought about the past year, the fence he'd built, the payments he'd made, the crew that respected him, the hotel bid he'd won. "He's ready," I said. "And if we don't stop her now, she'll do this to someone else." "Then let's stop her." Monday night, I asked Robert to skip blueprint training. "We need to talk. It's important." He sat down at the kitchen table. I sat across from him. Martin came in through the back door, Diana through the front. Robert's eyes went wide. What's going on?" I slid the folder across the table. 3 months ago, you told me about the $47,000 investment. I asked Martin to look into it. This is what we found." Robert opened the folder. Bank statements, medical records, hotel receipts, phone logs, photos. His hands started shaking as he read. "She drugged you," I said quietly. "For over a year, every night. Sleeping pills, Ambien high doses. That's why you have memory gaps. Why you don't remember signing documents. She was keeping you unconscious so she could forge your signature and steal your money." Robert picked up the bank statements. 6 checks. $47,000. Gone. "The investment was fake," Martin said. "No LLC exists. The money went straight into her account. She withdrew it as cash." Robert found the phone records, stared at the name. "Marco. She was calling Marco." "She was sleeping with him," I said. "Hotel records prove it. They're partners. He's not just a loan shark, he's her accomplice. They targeted you to get to me." Robert found the photo, Vanessa and Marco in the hotel lobby, her smiling, his arm around her. He set it down slowly. His face had gone pale. "She was with him," he whispered, "while I was at home, while I thought she loved me." "She didn't love you," Diana said gently. "She used you, and we can make sure she goes to prison for it. But we need your testimony." Robert looked up at me. "What do I have to do?" "Tell the truth. In a courtroom, under oath. It won't be easy." He nodded slowly. "I'll do it. I don't want her doing this to anyone else." Diana pulled out a legal pad. Then let's get your statement. We sat there until midnight. Robert told Diana everything. The poker games, the loans, the nightly pills, the blurry memories, the 47,000. Diana wrote it all down, had him sign it, witnessed by Martin and me. The next morning, Diana filed criminal charges with the Harris County District Attorney: theft by deception, fraud, illegal administration of a controlled substance, identity theft, conspiracy, attempted extortion. 7 counts. And 2 days later, the Houston Police Department issued an arrest warrant for Vanessa Pierce, also known as Victoria Castellano, and for Marco Delgado. Robert and I sat on the back porch that evening waiting for the call. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Scared, angry, but mostly relieved, like I can finally breathe." My phone rang. Detective Barnes. "Mr. Mitchell, we found them. Austin, hotel, together. We're making the arrest now." I hung up, looked at Robert. "They got her." He closed his eyes, nodded once, and for the first time in 2 years, I saw my son smile. Detective Barnes called back 20 minutes later. "Mr. Mitchell, I wanted to give you the details. We found them at the Four Seasons in Austin. Suite on the 14th floor, booked under the name Mr. and Mrs. Delgado. They were together when we knocked." I put the phone on speaker so Robert could hear. "What did you find?" I asked. Laptop open on the desk. They were working on something, a spreadsheet with names, profiles, financial details. 6 targets, all of them wealthy men, widowed or divorced with adult sons who had addiction issues. 1 in Austin, 2 in Dallas, 1 in San Antonio, 1 in Midland, 1 in El Paso. Robert's jaw tightened. We also found $23,000 in cash, bundled in a hotel safe. Ms. Pierce, or Castellano, whatever her real name is, had 3 different driver's licenses, 3 different names, 3 different addresses, and Mr. Delgado had 2 passports. Fake IDs. "We're running them now, but yeah, looks like it." And there was a notebook, handwritten, detailed instructions on how to run the scam, who to target, how to approach them, how to build the debt, how to extract the money. "It's a playbook, Mr. Mitchell. They've been doing this for years." I looked at Robert. His hands were clenched into fists on his knees. "What happens now?" I asked. "Booking arraignment bail hearing. They're being transported to Harris County Jail tonight. Bail hearing is tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. You and your son are welcome to attend, but you don't have to. This is just procedural. We'll be there. See you tomorrow." I hung up. Robert hadn't moved. "She had a playbook," he said quietly. "Like I was just a step in a process." "You were never just anything," I said. "You're my son, and she's going to pay for what she did." The bail hearing was at 9 the next morning. Robert and I sat in the back of the courtroom with Diana. It was smaller than I expected. Plain wooden benches, fluorescent lights, a Texas flag hanging next to the American one behind the judge's bench. Vanessa and Marco were brought in separately, in orange jumpsuits, hands cuffed in front of them. Vanessa's hair was pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup. She looked smaller somehow, less polished. Marco was stocky, dark stubble on his face, eyes darting around the room. Vanessa's gaze swept the courtroom. When she saw Robert, she stopped. Stared at him for 3 seconds. Her expression didn't change. No recognition, no emotion. Just cold assessment. Robert stared back. Didn't look away. The judge, a woman in her 60s. Gray hair, reading glasses, reviewed the charges. Vanessa Marie Pierce, also known as Victoria Ann Castellano. 7 counts. theft by deception $47,000, fraud, illegal administration of a controlled substance, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted extortion, pattern elder abuse across multiple jurisdictions. She looked up. "How do you plead?" Vanessa's public defender stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor." Bail is set at $750,000, cash or bond. Vanessa's lawyer spoke. "Your Honor, Ms. Pierce has no prior criminal record. She has ties to the community. She has 3 fake IDs and was found with $23,000 in cash in a hotel room." The judge interrupted. "She's a flight risk. Bail stands. Next. Marco Delgado, 5 counts. Conspiracy, illegal lending, racketeering, fraud, theft. Bail set at $500,000. Same result. He couldn't make it. Both remanded to custody. As they were let out, Vanessa looked back one more time. Not at Robert. At me. And for just a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not fear, not regret. Calculation. She was already planning her next move. A week later, Diana called. The DA offered plea deals. Vanessa gets 12 years if she testifies against Marco. Marco gets 10 if he testifies against her. Did they take it? No. Both refused. They're not turning on each other. So we go to trial. We go to trial, January 10th, 5 months from now. Robert threw himself into work. Marcus had promoted him to lead laborer on a new project, a $6 million office renovation in the medical center. Robert was supervising a crew of 8, managing schedules, coordinating with subcontractors. He'd come home exhausted every night, but he was good at it. The crew respected him, but I could see the weight he was carrying, the trial looming, the knowledge that he'd have to stand up in court and relive everything Vanessa had done to him. One evening he came home and I found him sitting in the dark living room, staring at nothing. "You okay?" I asked. "I saw the arrest photos today. Diana showed them to me. Vanessa in the orange jumpsuit. Mugshot. And I kept thinking I was married to her. I loved her. I thought she loved me. She didn't. People like her don't love anyone. I know. Doctor, Lynn keeps telling me that, but it still hurts." I sat down beside him. "You don't have to testify. Diana can build the case without you. We have the bank records, the medical evidence, the recording from the office. You've done enough." Robert was quiet for a long time. Then he shook his head. "No, I want to be there. I want to look her in the eye when they read the verdict. I want her to know that she didn't break me." "She didn't," I said. "You're stronger now than you've ever been." He looked at me. "Because of you. Because of yourself." September passed. October. November. Robert kept working. Kept going to GA meetings 3 times a week. Kept seeing Dr. Lynn twice a week now, preparing for the trial. Diana prepped him on what to expect. Cross-examination, how the defense would try to twist his words, how to stay calm under pressure. In December, Diana called with an update. Rebecca Lawrence and Margaret Kowalski are flying in the week of the trial. They're both willing to testify about what Vanessa did to their families. The jury's going to hear the pattern. And I've got Dr. Patel lined up as an expert witness on the drugging. What are our chances? Honestly, the evidence is overwhelming. Unless something goes very wrong, we're looking at convictions on all counts. And sentencing, Texas guidelines for this kind of thing, Vanessa's looking at 12 to 20 years. Marco maybe 10 to 15. But it depends on the jury. Christmas came and went. Robert and I spent it quietly, just the two of us, dinner at home, no decorations. We didn't talk about the trial. We watched football, played cards, pretended everything was normal. But January 10th was coming, and both of us knew it. The first week of January, Diana came over for a final prep session. She sat Robert down at the kitchen table and walked him through his testimony one more time. They're going to ask you about the poker games, the loans, the sleep medication, the investment. You need to be honest, direct, and calm. Don't let them rattle you. What if I freeze up? Then you take a breath, ask them to repeat the question, and answer. You're not on trial, Robert. She is. The night before the trial, Robert couldn't sleep. I heard him pacing in his room at 2 a.m. At 3, I knocked on his door. Come in. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, hands in his lap, staring at the floor. You ready? I asked. No, but I'm going anyway. That's all anyone can ask. The trial started at 9 a.m. January 10th in the Harris County Criminal Courthouse. Jury selection took 2 days. Opening statements on day 3, and Robert sat in the front row, hands folded, watching Vanessa sit at the defense table in a gray suit, her face blank as the prosecutor laid out the case against her. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about manipulation. About a predator who targeted vulnerable men, drugged them, stole from them, and destroyed their lives. And the evidence will show beyond any doubt that Vanessa Pierce is guilty. Robert didn't look away. Neither did I. January 10th, 9 a.m. Harris County Criminal Courthouse, 6th floor. The courtroom was larger than I expected. High ceilings, wood paneling, rows of benches already filling with observers. Diana sat at the prosecution table with the assistant DA. Vanessa and Marco sat at separate defense tables 20 feet apart, neither looking at the other. Robert and I sat in the second row directly behind Diana. His hands were folded in his lap. Steady, calm. Jury selection took 2 days. 12 jurors, 4 alternates. 7 women, 5 men. Ages ranging from mid-20s to late 60s. Diana had told us what to look for. People who'd been victims of fraud. People with family members in recovery. People who understood manipulation. On day 3, opening statements. The assistant DA stood. Mid-40s, gray suit, no notes. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about predators. 2 people who hunted vulnerable men, drugged them, stole from them, and destroyed families. The evidence will show that Vanessa Pierce, also known as Victoria Castellano, and Marco Delgado, ran a calculated multi-year scheme. They targeted Robert Mitchell because his father owned a successful construction company. They built debt deliberately. They drugged him nightly with Ambien so he couldn't remember signing documents. They stole $47,000. And when they were done, they were already planning their next victim. The evidence is overwhelming, and at the end of this trial, we will ask you to find both defendants guilty. Vanessa's lawyer stood next. Public defender Young Ernest. He argued Robert was unreliable, that the prosecution's case relied on a man with memory problems and a father with a financial motive. Marco's lawyer echoed the same defense, nothing but circumstantial evidence. Diana leaned back and whispered, "They've got nothing." Day 4. Robert took the stand. He wore a navy suit I'd bought him the week before. Hair cut short, clean-shaven. He looked like the man he'd become: strong, focused, sober. The assistant DA walked him through his story. The gambling addiction, meeting Vanessa at GA, the poker games with Marco, the loans that kept growing, the nightly pills Vanessa gave him, the blurry memories of signing documents, the $47,000 he couldn't account for. Robert's voice stayed steady, clear. He didn't waver. Then came cross-examination. Vanessa's lawyer stood. "Mr. Mitchell, You've admitted you have memory problems. Isn't it possible you simply don't remember what you spent that money on? No, Robert said. Because I never received the money. It went into an account I didn't have access to. But you signed checks, correct? I signed checks while under the influence of medication I didn't know I was taking. Medication your wife gave you to help you sleep, because you asked her for help. Correct. I asked for help with sleep. I didn't ask to be drugged unconscious every night for over a year. The lawyer pushed harder. Isn't it true your father offered to buy your debt only if you agreed to testify against my client? No. My father bought my debt to protect me. I chose to testify because what she did was criminal. You're angry at Ms. Pierce for leaving you. Isn't this just revenge? Robert leaned forward slightly. His voice dropped, but it was stronger. I'm not angry she left. I'm angry she destroyed my life, stole from me, and drugged me so I couldn't fight back. That's not revenge. That's justice. The courtroom was silent. The lawyer sat down. Day 5. Rebecca Lawrence took the stand. She was in her early 50s now, graying hair, tired eyes. She told the jury about her brother David, about Victoria Castellano showing up at his NA meetings in 2007, about the wedding, about her father signing over 35% of their business, about the $850,000, about her father's heart attack 8 months later. My father died of a broken heart. Rebecca said, her voice cracking. My brother relapsed and never recovered. Victoria Castellano destroyed my family for money, and she did it again and again. She's a predator. Vanessa sat stone-faced. No reaction. Day 6. Margaret Kowalski. She told the jury about her brother Michael, about Vanessa Pierce attending his GA meetings in Portland in 2010, about the fake pregnancy, about her father signing over 40% of their logging business, about the $1.2 million settlement, about Michael's overdose in 2012. My brother couldn't live with the guilt, Margaret said. He blamed himself for trusting her, for believing she loved him. She took everything from us. By the time Margaret stepped down, 2 jurors were wiping their eyes. Day 7. Dr. Patel. He explained Ambien. How it works, how long-term use causes memory impairment, blackouts, cognitive decline. He walked the jury through Robert's hair follicle test, 14 months of consistent zolpidem presence. Mr. Mitchell was being drugged at levels high enough to cause anterograde amnesia, Dr. Patel said. He would have had no ability to form new memories while under the influence. Any document signed during that period would have been signed by someone incapable of informed consent. The defense couldn't shake him. Day 8. Closing arguments. The assistant DA stood. You've heard the evidence. Bank records, medical records, phone logs, hotel receipts, 3 victims, a playbook, $23,000 in cash. Fake ideas. The defendants had a system. They refined it. They perfected it. And they were planning their next victim when the police arrested them. This is not a misunderstanding. This is organized crime. Find them guilty. Vanessa's lawyer argued reasonable doubt. Marco's lawyer argued the same. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. At 4:30 p.m. we got the call. Verdict. The courtroom filled. Robert sat beside me, his leg bouncing slightly. I put my hand on his shoulder. The jury foreman stood. On count 1, theft by deception, we find the defendant, Vanessa Pierce, guilty. Robert exhaled slowly. On count 2, fraud, guilty. Count 3, illegal administration of a controlled substance, guilty. Count 4, identity theft, guilty. Count 5, conspiracy, guilty. Count 6, attempted extortion, guilty. Count 7, pattern elder abuse, guilty. Vanessa's face stayed blank. On Marco Delgado. Count 1, conspiracy, guilty. Count 2, illegal lending, guilty. Count 3, racketeering, guilty. Count 4, fraud, guilty. Count 5, theft, guilty. Marco's head dropped. 2 weeks later, sentencing. Judge Hendricks looked at Vanessa. You targeted vulnerable men. You drugged them. You stole from them. You destroyed families. I've reviewed the pre-sentence report and the victim impact statements. Vanessa Pierce. I sentence you to 15 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Marco Delgado, 12 years. Vanessa was let out in handcuffs. She didn't look back. Robert and I stood outside the courthouse in the cold January air. He was quiet for a long time. It's over, he finally said. Yeah, it's over. He looked at me. What now? I smiled. Now we build. March 2023, 14 months after the trial. Robert stood in the lobby of the Sugarland Marquis Hotel, the $14 million project he'd estimated 2 years ago, the one where he'd caught the $55,000 error. The lobby was finished now. Polished marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a chandelier hanging 30 feet overhead. It looked exactly like the blueprints he'd drawn. I stood beside him, watching the developer walk through with the final inspection team. Completed 2 weeks early, the developer said, shaking Robert's hand. 8,000 under budget. Your son's a hell of a project manager, Brandon. Robert smiled. Not the hollow, broken smile I'd seen 6 years ago. A real one. That evening, Robert came to my office. He had an envelope in his hand. He set it on my desk. What's this? I asked. The promissory note. Paid in full. 18 months early. I opened the envelope. Bank statement. Zero balance. $180,000 cleared. Robert, you didn't have to. Yeah, I did. You gave me a second chance. I'm not wasting it. I looked at my son, 37 years old, sober for 3 years, managing million-dollar projects, earning respect, not demanding it. Sit down, I said. I want to talk to you about something. He sat. I pulled out a folder, partnership agreement. I'd had Diana draft it the week before. When Vanessa walked into this office 3 years ago, she demanded 40% equity. She wanted to take what you hadn't earned. I'm not giving you 40%, Robert. I'm offering it, because you've earned every bit of it. His eyes widened. Dad, Mitchell Construction is worth about $18 million now. 40% makes you a full partner. Equal say in decisions. Your name on the contracts. Not because you're my son, because you've proven you belong here. Robert stared at the papers. His hands shook slightly as he picked them up, read through them slowly. I don't know what to say. Say yes. He looked up at me. Yes. We shook hands. Father and son. Partners. 3 years passed. January 2026. I was 66 years old. Robert was 39. Mitchell Construction had grown. 22 employees now. Projects across Texas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas. Annual revenue pushing $30 million. And Robert was running most of it. I'd stepped back, took the title of chairman, let Robert take president. I still came to the office 3 days a week, reviewed bids, offered advice when he asked. But the company was his now, and he was better at it than I'd ever been. That morning, we stood on a vacant lot in downtown Houston. 40 acres. The biggest project we'd ever landed. $43 million. An 18-month build. A conference center and hotel complex. The client, a consortium of medical companies, wanted to name it after someone who represented resilience, second chances, overcoming adversity. Robert had suggested the name, the Sarah Mitchell Memorial Conference Center. I stood looking at the rendering glass, and steel 10 stories beautiful, and I felt my throat tighten. "She'd love this," I said quietly. Robert nodded. "I know." Behind us, a camera crew was setting up, local news covering the groundbreaking. Robert was doing the interview. He was good at that now, confident, articulate, comfortable in his own skin. A woman walked up beside Robert. Emily. They'd been married 2 years. She was 34, an architect, sharp and kind. She had her hand resting on her stomach, 5 months pregnant with their first child. A boy. They were naming him Brandon. "You nervous?" Emily asked Robert. "A little, but Dad taught me how to handle pressure." I smiled. The reporter asked Robert about the project, about the name, about Mitchell Construction's growth. "This company was built by my father and my mother," Robert said, looking at the camera. 35 years ago, they started with one truck and a dream. My mother passed in 2012, but her legacy didn't end. It's in every building we've built, every life we've touched. And now it's in this project. The Sarah Mitchell Memorial Conference Center isn't just a building. It's a promise that second chances matter, that people can rebuild, that families can heal. His voice didn't waver. When the interview ended, Emily kissed his cheek. "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so." That evening, the three of us, Robert, Emily, and I, drove to the cemetery. It was the first time Emily had come with us. The first time Robert had brought someone to meet his mother. We stood in front of Sarah's headstone. The same one Robert and I had visited 6 years ago when he'd broken down and apologized. The same one we'd visited after the trial when he'd told her it was over. Emily held Robert's hand. He put his other hand on her stomach. "Mom," Robert said quietly, "this is Emily. And this," he smiled, "this is your grandson. We're naming him Brandon. Or if Dad's okay with it, Brandon Sarah Mitchell." I felt tears sting my eyes. She'd love that. Robert knelt down, placed his hand on the headstone. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you and Dad. But I'm trying to make it right. I'm sober, I'm working, I'm building something good. And I'm going to teach your grandson what you and Dad taught me, that integrity matters. That family matters. That second chances are worth fighting for." Emily knelt beside him, rested her head on his shoulder. I stood behind them, looking at Sarah's name carved in stone. Sarah Mitchell, 1958 to 2012. Beloved wife and mother. I thought about the night she passed. How I'd sat beside her hospital bed, holding her hand, promising I'd take care of Robert. How I'd failed that promise for years. How I'd almost lost him. But we'd found our way back. I kept my promise. I whispered. I brought him home. The sun was setting behind us, casting long shadows across the grass. Emily stood first, helped Robert up. They walked back toward the car, giving me a moment alone. I knelt down where Robert had been, touched the cold stone. "He's going to be a father, Sarah, a good one, better than I was. And our grandson, your grandson, he's going to grow up knowing your name, knowing what you built, knowing that love doesn't end." I stood slowly. My knees weren't what they used to be. At the car, Robert was laughing at something Emily said, his arm around her shoulders, her hand on her stomach. A family. I walked toward them and Robert looked up. "You ready, Dad?" "Yeah. Let's go home." We drove back through Houston as the city lights came on, past the Riverside project, the $5.2 million job that had been on my desk, The day Robert walked into my office, past the medical center where Robert had managed his first big renovation, past the hotel in Sugar Land where he'd proven himself. And I thought about how far we'd come from that Friday afternoon in March 2020, when my son walked through my door with a woman who wanted to destroy us, to this moment. Driving home with my son, his wife, my future grandson, we'd built something. Not just buildings, not just a company, a second chance, a family, a legacy. When we pulled into my driveway, Robert turned to me. "Thank you for not giving up on me, for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. You're my son. I'll always fight for you." Emily smiled. "We'll see you at the groundbreaking next week." Wouldn't miss it. They drove away. I stood in the driveway watching their taillights disappear, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Inside, I poured 2 fingers of whiskey, the same glass I'd poured the night Robert first left, the one I couldn't drink. This time, I raised it toward the window. "To you, Sarah. We did it. Together." I took a sip, and I smiled. Looking back at this family story, I realized the mistakes I made weren't just about money. They were about letting pride silence love. For 6 years, I believed cutting Robert off was protecting him. I was wrong. If you're facing something similar in your own family story, don't wait as long as I did. Don't let anger harden into walls that seem impossible to tear down. This dad revenge wasn't about destroying Vanessa. It was about saving my son. But the real revenge, the kind that matters, was proving that love outlasts manipulation. Dad revenge can take many forms, and sometimes the strongest form is simply refusing to give up. When I bought Robert's debt, when I recorded that meeting, when I showed him those 4 job folders, that wasn't just dad revenge. That was a father choosing to fight when his son couldn't. The lesson here is simple: predators count on silence, on shame, on families breaking apart. Don't give them that power. If someone in your family story is struggling, if you see the signs of manipulation or addiction, reach out. Even if it's been years, even if it feels impossible. God gives us second chances not because we deserve them, but because love doesn't keep score. Robert and I were broken, but we rebuilt. Not perfectly, but together. And that's what mattered. Thank you for walking with me to the end of this journey. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if you found yourself in Robert's situation? Or mine, if this story resonated with you? Please consider subscribing so you won't miss future videos. A quick note. While inspired by real patterns of financial abuse and family reconciliation, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content isn't your preference, feel free to explore other videos that suit your interests better.